started with that. Okay, so welcome everybody, and we're going to talk today about internships. And I just kind of labeled this, who needs them and why do I care? If you don't care, hopefully we'll help you to care a little bit more in the process here. So in terms of who needs internships, it's required for a number of majors. All the business majors require one, computer science, criminal justice, health services, and then it's selective for a number of other majors like animation, art, biology. And so you could do an internship, or you could also do a research project or another combination of classes. Excuse me, so it's important to know whether it's required or not. Why do them? Well, and these are national numbers, not just Northwestern's. 70% of interns are offered a full-time entry-level job. So it's really a great entry point to get into a full-time position. Recent college graduates who had a relevant job or an internship while they were in school were more than twice as likely to have a good job right after graduation. So again, there's a lot of data that shows us internships are really opening doors for people career-wise. And the people who had interned found out that their salaries were around 10% higher than people who had not interned. So there's value there also. And if an employer is looking at two candidates and trying to decide if they're pretty equivalent, how do I pick which one to go with? So their first question is, did they do an internship at my organization? And their next question is, did they do an internship somewhere in my industry? So internships really can be a deciding factor about who gets the job or not. And paid internships, which we'll talk a little bit about, are 34% more likely to lead to that job after graduation compared to unpaid internships. So if you don't do any internships, you're even less likely. But so if you do an unpaid internship, that's going to help you, but a paid internship will help you even more. And nationwide, around 43% of internships are unpaid. Our number tends to be a little higher than 43% just because we have a lot of ministry majors, and that's a big part of our university. So ours is probably more around 50, close to there. So, but my guess is that most of the questions that I get as an internship specialist is, what's the process? How do I go about doing this? So the process is, and I'll just close this up a little bit so I can see my whole screen. Within the internship process, if you want to find out where it is, you go to the Rock, look at the Student Academics tab, and then you can find our portal, which is kind of on the lower right. Look for internships, and then that whole process will pop up. And we just updated this graphic to explain the process, so we'll talk about that here first. So it's basically 3 steps. You find an internship, you apply for the credit, and then you complete the course expectations. So those are the big 3, and that's where we're going to spend the majority of our time is talking through each of those steps. So the first step is finding the internship. Obviously, that can take the longest sometimes. And the first step to that is, what kind of internship do I need to have? Because you might look at somebody else's major and they might have different requirements. So you want to have want to make sure that you're seeing what you need to do. I've included a few pictures of other interns in the past. Shasta Bell here on the left, she has a calligraphy company, and then Amelia was her intern and then later was hired on at her calligraphy store. So to go to your requirements, again, we go back to the Rock to that internship page, and then there's just a thing that says understand your major requirements. So if you click on that link, you'll get this chart that comes up that says, so for instance, we have a couple of accounting majors. Accounting, the course code is ACC 4995, and then this is for one academic credit, I have to work 240 hours in the business program. It looks for what your prerequisites are, which is you have to take the professional skills class. And for accounting, the faculty supervisor is Christine Olson. So a lot of the things you're going to need to know are going to be right here on this chart. And just to show some how much variation there is, for instance, in the art department, you can take 1 credit and you only need 40 hours of work. So again, there's a big variation across our majors. So you need to be sure you're checking this chart to know how many hours you need to take, how many credits can I take, are there prerequisites that I need to do first? And as I'm going along, if you have questions, feel free to jump in. but I'll go through the material and then we'll have time for questions at the end also. So how do I find an internship? Networking is going to be your best bet. I mean, and just start asking people now before you're even ready. Start talking to people about, I need to do an internship for my program. Do you know of any internships? Do you know somebody who might be able to offer me an internship? Do you know people who have a business or an organization I could work at? This is the type of work I'm looking for. So everybody who knows you is going to know what you're going to bring to the table, and they're going to be more willing to help you find that. So let's talk for a minute about who we could network with, because there's a lot of different options. It's, again, just super important for not just internships, but also for future jobs, because even if they don't have an internship to offer you, they might have a job in the future. So it's worth getting those connections made now. We have something new called career communities. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Again, you can access them through our portal on the Rock. But we have over 300, it's mostly alumni, but also just industry professionals who care about our students and want to help them. And you can select, like we have an accounting and finance group, we have an analytics and technology group, and you'll get their picture, their LinkedIn profile, their email, so you can email them directly. So you can go to their LinkedIn page to see what their career has been like, what did they major in, what other experiences have they had. You'll see on the screen here, there's a little N around some of the people's name pictures, and that tells us that they're a Northwestern alum. So you can go to that resource, and again, there's 300 people who are there because they want to help our students. So use that as a resource. It's brand new. We just launched it at the beginning of the year. Network on LinkedIn. If you're not already on LinkedIn, this would be a great time to start an account on LinkedIn. If you go to our University of Northwestern page, there are over 12,000 alumni there. So you can search, there's an alumni tab on LinkedIn, and then you can search by where they live. Are they here in the Twin Cities? Are they somewhere else? Where they work, so who their employer is. We've got 115 at Target, for instance. We've got 100 at Wells Fargo. What do they do? What they studied. So if I'm an accounting major, who are the other accounting majors who graduated from here? We also have what their skills are and if they're a first, second, or third connection. So that's a great resource also. So if you're thinking about, oh, there's a company that's offering an internship, maybe at Land O'Lakes. Who do I know who works at Land O'Lakes? You can search by name also. You can do a keyword search. So that's a great resource to reach out. So if you want to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, you only get a 300-character little message you can send the first time. So talk about your connection, that you're from Northwestern. Tell them what you're looking for. I'm trying to find an internship, or I'd like to find more about your job, or I'd like to learn about your company. Here's what I need. I'd like some advice. I'd like you to look at my resume maybe, and then just kind of close with a call to action. Could you answer some questions for me? Could I send you an email? Could we connect? Could we talk on the phone? But it doesn't need to be anything real elaborate, but the more people you reach out to, kind of like networking, the more people have the opportunity to help you. So I really encourage you to take advantage of that. Also, while you're on LinkedIn, we have a LinkedIn Northwestern alumni and student group. So there's about 2,800 people in there now. It's a smaller group, but it's one that I scroll through LinkedIn every day when I find other alumni from Northwestern who are, say, posting jobs. Hey, our company is hiring, our organization is expanding, our internships just became available. I throw all that into our alumni and student group page. So if you're not a part of that, it's a great idea to be involved in that group, and you'll see all those openings and postings. And it's because it's shared by an alum, you can say like, oh, Kathy shared that, and I know she works at that company, so I can go straight to her and ask her more about it. So not just is it, here's somebody who works at a company, but here's somebody who works at a company who came from Northwestern, who's telling me that there's opportunities there. So encourage you to join that group also. Network with fellow students. This is one of my favorite. This is a couple of accounting majors who graduated last year. Sarah Olson on the right there was looking for an internship. And the previous summer, Emily Parker on the left in the picture of them together had worked at the Office of the Legislative Auditor over the summer. And when Sarah was looking for a job when she was about to graduate, she was going to a career fair. She went to the career fair. Emily said, oh, you should talk to my old boss. She's going to be there. Made the connection. I think they might have emailed ahead of time. They basically were ready to close up for the day. They hadn't really they had kind of closed off their opportunities, but they met Sara, and because Emily had introduced them and she made this introduction, they reopened their application system for Sara, and she ended up being hired full time. So, I mean, your fellow students and people who maybe were a year or two ahead of you in class, you know, follow them on LinkedIn, see where they landed. Maybe they have an internship opportunity. So be sure to reach out to fellow students, people you've had classes with who maybe graduated. They're a great network also. Okay, so then the other thing you can do, a lot of people search online. So you can network, you can also search online. Handshake, LinkedIn, Indeed are all great resources. A couple of points about each of those. You already have an account on Handshake just by being part of the university, but if you complete your profile and just basically take your resume and drop that into Handshake, your chances of being seen by an employer are going to increase by 5 times. So take the time to just, if you've got a resume, just put it in Handshake. Do the same thing, put it in LinkedIn. If you're not sure your resume is up to speed, you know, make an appointment with our group. We've got career coaches, myself, Jacob Cochran, who can meet with you, review your resume, and get it in great shape. So then when you put it on Handshake, the employers who are saying, oh, we've got internships available, they can then contact you and say, hey, we've got this internship in accounting. Would you want to apply for it? And we've had students who have been connected that way and gotten internship opportunities that way. So make sure all your information is filled out in Handshake and that it's turned on to be public. Same thing with LinkedIn. You know, have a good quality photo. We just had offered headshots here last week. Put that in, put some time, make it look professional, have somebody proofread it, double check it. So your LinkedIn and your Handshake profiles are doing hard work for you there too, because when employers have opportunities, they're looking for the right kind of students to fill those, so you can improve your odds that way. And Indeed, I mean, it's the biggest job site in the world, so be sure you have a profile there, be checking for internships there. And rather than just send in all these online applications, do the online application, but also look at our alumni tab to see, do I know anybody who's working at that company? Because I could reach out to them. Maybe they could give me some things to say in the interview. Maybe they could even send me a referral link, because if a current employee says, hey, I know this guy who used to be in my math class, I'm going to give him a link to register directly, and it says that I referred him, that's going to give you a much better chance of getting your application seen. So look at the alumni who maybe work at the company who have offerings and openings on Indeed or any of these sites. You can also create your own internship. If you're looking, I mean, I'll be honest, right now is a tough time for internships. A lot of companies during COVID have scaled back or dropped their internship programs, or they've had to, you know, cut back on how many they can offer. So if you know what you can do, I can provide accounting services, I can provide bookkeeping services, I can provide analysis. You can go out to the organization yourself and say, hey, would you be interested in any of these services? I need to work 240 hours, I need to work 75 hours, I need to work 40 hours, whatever it is for your credit requirements, and just give them a proposal to say, here's what I could do for you. Maybe look at if they have a website that's not very up to date, maybe you could help with that. If they hear social media isn't maybe quite on track. I mean, a lot of the students who are graduating now, who are juniors and seniors, are much more adept at using social media than maybe the people who are running some small organizations. So they'd probably be grateful for someone to come in and say, how about if I just clean this up? I can fix some things, I can generate a little more ideas and bring things up to date. So propose a solution that you can give them, and then negotiate terms. Like I mentioned in the business program, they do need to be paid internships, but the pay is, you know, kind of open-ended. It could be, you know, they give you $1,000 flat rate for the, you know, 240 hours because that's all they can afford, or maybe they pay you a monthly stipend. But you've got some leeway in terms of negotiating how that works out if you're creating your own. So the last thing about finding an internship is when you get to the point where you're kind of ready to interview for this job. So you found something, you've got an employer who's interested, take that job description, and 99% of the time it's fine, but just on the chance, show it to your professor, your internship professor, which is also on that chart we looked at. And just make sure, like, is this going to count for my internship? Am I doing the right things? And basically what we're trying to avoid is just that the intern ends up getting coffee for people, and, you know, so we just want to make sure that you're doing work that you're going to be learning on the job. like I said, 99% of the time it's fine, but it's just a quick check because your professor will also have to approve the internship, which is our next step. So, and again, just take a look at this chart, see who your professor is, and then they'll be your resource for all that information. So then the next thing you do is you apply for the credit. Now, you can do an internship and not apply for credit. We'll talk in a little bit. My daughter did 3 internships. None of them were for credit because her major didn't require it. She just wanted to get the experience. But most of you are probably doing it because it's a requirement of your program. So if you want to get that academic credit, rather than applying for, signing up for the class in Banner, you're going to go to Handshake. You're going to click on Request a New Experience. And then there's an approval process. And then in about a week, you'll get an email or less from the registrar's office saying you have been accepted for 1, 2, 4, however many credits you've signed up for. Here's Carter Allard. He had started with Xcel Energy in last spring, right before COVID started. And so he was on site for about 2 weeks, and then they sent everybody remotely. So he did his internship, from his dorm room or from home. So this is where you go to Handshake, you look for that experiences, and you'll click on that. You'll say request a new experience. Most of you are going to do general internship experience. The only other option there is an international one. We'll talk a little bit about that, but again, 99% are going to be general. And then that will bring up a whole form that you fill out. One thing about these forms is you have to do it all kind of at one take. So gather all your information because you can't save it and come back to it. Get everything together, all the information you need. We have information about your employer here, information about the job. Make sure you put in the salary amount that you are getting, if you're getting a salary. If you're not, you can just put 0 in there. Make sure that you have who the internship practicum professor is. And again, that's back to that chart we looked at. And the on-site supervisor, that's the person who's at the employer that you're going to be reporting to, who's going to be checking your work. So make sure those are entered correctly. We've had some issues recently where the email was incorrect, and so the professor never got the email to approve it. So that's created some problems. So just make sure that that's entered correctly. You're going to give more details about what you're going to be doing, what's your major, what's your minor, when are you going to start the internship, when will it end, and it may go longer than you expect. The start and end date is important for us just to know, like, I'm doing it during the spring semester, and that's why I'm applying for a spring credit. So that's the key there. The course code, again, that's back on that chart. How many credits are you registering for? Again, to the chart. So if it's 75 hours, for instance, I think is biology for 1 credit, and you're going to ask for 2 credits, you got to make sure you're doing 150 hours of work. So just make sure those things match up. Then you talk about what your specific duties are. Okay, and then, so that's everything you needed to do to get the internship. And again, you'll hear back from the registrar in less than a week usually. So I'll look at it, make sure it's complete. If there's something missing, I'll email you. It'll go to your professor, they'll approve it. It will also be sent to your employer. They can approve it. They don't absolutely have to. We'll get it going through. And then the registrar will approve it. So once that's all taken care of, you'll be notified. So then you just go ahead and do your work. Each major has a different requirement. Some, it's very extensive. Some of you in ministry, they do a whole Moodle course for the semester. They do entries every couple of weeks. They do reflections. Business, I think, typically you write a paper at the end of it. So, and you're not doing anything during the time of the internship, but kind of keep in mind, well, these are the requirements at the end. I'm going to need to do a portfolio, or I'm going to need to write up my work, or I'm going to need to write a paper. So know what's expected of you. The little phone there, we'll send out at the end of the semester, about 3 weeks before the end, we'll send out a survey to you and to your on-site supervisor to see, like, how did the student perform in terms of leadership, in terms of written communication, oral communication, critical thinking, problem solving, things like that. So you'll be rated on that. You'll rate yourself, and your supervisor will rate you. And then that'll be provided to your professor. And then hopefully you'll go to Handshake and say, like, hey, I got this new internship experience, and then update yourself there. I've got a picture of Peyton here. He was a youth pastor with Fountain of Life Gospel Church a couple of semesters. So you can go back to the same place and do a second internship if you want. I know ministry, a number of those students do that. So let's just talk for a minute about some success stories. You don't have to go far away. A number of our communication students are just interning upstairs at the Mel J at KTIS. Here's Bryce and Keith Stevens. We have somebody who interned in Alaska not last summer, but the summer before. And now she's come on full-time as the high school youth director. So she turned an internship. She loved going into Alaska, being a part of that community. And now that's become her full-time job. We have internships abroad. Grace Wilson did a job shadow at a hospital in Greece. Abigail Fisher was in Costa Rica working with students. She had a quote there about no better way to gain experience for life and career. And so right now, obviously, international internships are a challenge, but we're hoping by next fall to have those offered again. And Kendra Sundin and the global programs can help with that too. So here's a few other specific examples. Josh Carey graduated from the business department last year, interned at Securian. They offered him a full-time job, and he was able to negotiate a better salary even because he's like, hey, I've already worked here for a semester. It's a little bit more than that. But he had some experience, so he could negotiate a better salary for his full-time job when he graduated. Sam Johnson, he was looking for an internship. He had to do an informational interview for a class, reached out to an employer, just got some information about arbitrage and what that looks like, and learned what he could. And then he said, hey, could I do a project for you? Because I need to do this internship. Did a nice job on the project, ended up getting hired full-time after graduation. Daniel Fenske just graduated recently. He interned at the Outdoor Great Room for 2 semesters in a row, and they also offered him a full-time job after graduation. Sydney Welsh, Chelstrom now, interned for like a year and a half at ACR Homes. She was their Internship Impact Award winner for the year when she was there, and now she's getting her doctorate in physical therapy. So she was able to really connect with her resident that she was working with. She created a whole new exercise program to help her. So again, you could really make an impact in your internships. And then I had asked some of our alumni and professionals, do you have any advice for people about internships? So I'm just going to kind of breeze through this fairly quickly. Amanda Brooks, who just graduated last year, said this is a great way to figure out if this is what you really want to do. She said, don't wait until the last minute to do your internship. If you have the opportunity to do it now, go do it. And it'll give you a chance to figure out what you really like to do in a career. And, something you may have thought you would like, you go into an internship situation and you're like, that's not so much what I want. Jeff Hyder, who's at Medtronic, said start early. I mean, this says November and December for the next summer. And we do have most of the large companies will open and close their internship opportunities in the fall before that summer. So it is important to get out there early. Network again, we talked about networking to the company you want to work with, get to know those people, maybe ask to be mentored. Maybe you want to find a mentor in a company that you want to land in, and then that could eventually turn into an internship. I like this point Andrew Glarum shared. One of the most important things about an internship is that you can then articulate what that meant and what you learned. So not just I've learned this skill, but now I can talk about this in my next interview for full-time jobs or my next interview for my next internship. So be able to talk about it with people. Alex Wilson, who's over at the Chick-fil-A across the street in Roseville, said, think about where God's gifted you, what your long-term goals are, what you're going to learn there, who you'll network with. Because if you're just thinking about like how much I'm going to get it paid and what do my peers think about this, you may miss some opportunities. I know a number of the Chick-fil-A's around here have offered internships over the time, and they really are each run like a small business. So you can learn a lot on the ground that you might not learn at a larger corporation. Find your passion. This is a great place to think about, where do I want to work when I'm done here at school? And then again, you can adjust. If I thought this was going to be where I wanted, but I did my internship and that wasn't really a good fit, or this is exactly what I want to do, and I found this whole other thing I didn't even know I liked. He says, show up early, stay late, ask lots of questions. This is really a time for you to learn, so make the most of that. If you don't, Madeline Jeppesen, who's an occupational therapist now, even if you're not initially excited about your internship, give it your best. See what it could turn into. I mean, if you do a good job for a company, even if it's not your ideal situation, You might find something that you really love in there, and you might learn something about yourself. This is like this, my daughter, Katie. She did 3 different internships that were none of them for credit, but she had a lot of different interests. She liked trying different things. She sort of figured out, well, this is a job I really enjoy, and I really don't want to spend my time doing this. So doing those 3 different internships really gave her a sense of, I don't want to work at this type of company. I really like this sort of company. So then when she got her full-time job, she really knew what she was looking for. So that's all for my presentation. Are there any questions I could answer for you?